The date. We had been planning to relocate to the countryside for quite some time and were finally able to escape the city's hustle and bustle. Growing up on a farm myself, I was eager for my kids to enjoy the same upbringing. My wife, Clarissa, and I managed to find an affordable, spacious farmhouse with 5 bedrooms and a charming wraparound porch. Although it needed some repairs, it was in better condition than the other properties we had seen. The property also had functional outbuildings, giving us ample space to fulfill our dream of keeping horses. The process became tense when another buyer showed interest in the farmhouse just as we received an offer on our city home. Ultimately, we sold our house for slightly less than our asking price, which was still sufficient for us to proceed. It seemed we might lose the farmhouse, but fortunately, the other buyer's financing fell through, allowing us to secure our dream home. Once we moved in, Clarissa and I were constantly busy with renovations and maintenance, from painting to fixing fences. Despite the exhaustion, the sense of fulfillment made it worthwhile. Our evenings were spent collapsing into bed, too tired for much else, with barely any time for television. Our sons, Nicholas and Jacob, reveled in the new environment, exploring the surrounding nature with enthusiasm. I work as a deputy sheriff in the county, having transitioned from a city police role to embrace rural life. A colleague who became the sheriff of Mason County helped facilitate this change, allowing us to live anywhere in the county. This shift was crucial for our move to the countryside. Clarissa and her mother, Caroline, share a strong bond, often conversing daily. Caroline's year had been tumultuous, marked by personal upheavals, including the end of her 5th marriage. The separation came unexpectedly after her husband, Dale, left, causing a stir within the family due to the age difference with his new partner. The subsequent passing of Caroline's father and her mother's declining health added to the family's challenges, creating a backdrop of complexity and emotional turmoil amidst our new rural life. Facing the prospect of divorce, Caroline found herself in a financial bind, leading her to ask if we could take care of her horses. Our children were overjoyed, and we gladly welcomed the 2 quarter horses and a palomino to our farm. Lately, my wife, Clarissa, had been experiencing some mood swings, periods of low energy, and a diminished interest in intimacy. Our sons being 12 and 9, postnatal changes were clearly not the cause. Clarissa consulted her doctor, who performed a thorough examination and various tests, exploring possibilities from early menopause to more serious health concerns. Fortunately, the diagnosis was not severe. She had low testosterone, a condition affecting both men and women, leading to the symptoms she faced. Clarissa prefers natural and homemade remedies over medication, maintaining a kitchen free from processed foods and drinks like soda, which she often advises me against given my tendency to choose less healthy options. As a law enforcement officer, I find caffeine essential during long shifts, contrary to Clarissa's natural lifestyle. She was reluctant to follow her doctor's prescription for her condition, exploring instead various natural treatments, though with little success. This issue, while not disastrous, strained our relationship, particularly our physical connection. We discussed and debated her approach frequently. I had hoped that moving to the farm might rekindle our closeness, but it remained unchanged. Clarissa believes she must resolve this independently, asserting that my desire for physical closeness only pressures her. She is confident in finding a natural solution, although my subtle hints for intimacy seem unhelpful. Occasionally, Clarissa would acquiesce, but those moments felt obligatory and lacked the passion we once had, leaving our relationship feeling routine and unfulfilled. A few weeks back, Clarissa's mother reached out to inquire if we were interested in a hay feeder for the larger round hay bales, which would reduce the frequency of feeding our horses compared to the smaller square bales. The round bale feeder, a metal structure, helps in managing the hay so that the horses can eat more efficiently without scattering it everywhere, thus minimizing waste. We agreed it would be beneficial, and Caroline offered to deliver it the next weekend. I never paid much attention to Caroline in a personal manner, viewing her more as a motherly figure despite her appealing looks. She embodied the cowgirl lifestyle, which resonated in her demeanor, possibly reflecting the turmoil in her personal life due to potential loss of her property and horses. Caroline maintained a fit physique through her daily routine and equestrian activities. Standing at 5'6", she carried herself well, often dressed in vibrant western shirts, snug jeans, a large belt buckle, and her favorite riding boots, topped with a straw hat, embodying the rodeo queen persona. When Caroline arrived at our farm with the hay feeder, I offered to help set it up. Clarissa assisted initially but soon returned inside to tend to the boys and prepare lunch. Assembling the feeder required coordinating our efforts. I would lift and align the sections while Caroline secured them with bolts. The process was cumbersome, leading to occasional unintentional contact between us, which was slightly uncomfortable. At one point, I noticed Caroline pausing and appearing to look in my direction, creating a moment of unexpected tension. Concerned, I asked if she was okay, but she didn't respond immediately, leaving me worried about her well-being as I continued holding the heavy feeder parts above her. Caroline was silent. Abruptly, she fumbled with my belt, undoing it and pulling down the zipper. I gasped in surprise as she tugged at my boxers, revealing my tense state. "Caroline, what are you doing?" I stuttered, panic rising. "Clarissa might see us any second." Ignoring my protests, Caroline's touch was gentle yet insistent, sending waves of unexpected pleasure through me, making my legs weak. "Caroline, this is risky if we're caught." I tried to warn her. "It's fine, Patrick," she murmured reassuringly, her actions both skilled and swift. Overwhelmed by the sensations, I struggled to speak, my words trailing off into a sigh. The risk of being discovered added to the intensity, yet I was also self-conscious about having been outside all day. But Caroline seemed undeterred, her attention undivided and meticulous, heightening the experience. I'm of average build, neither notably large nor small. The sensation was intense, more than anything I'd felt before. Caroline's technique was so effective, it left me reeling. It had been a while since I'd felt such intensity, and her dedication was unparalleled, taking everything to a new level. The experience culminated in an overwhelming moment of release, unlike anything I'd ever felt, marking an unforgettable, albeit risky, encounter. Caroline stepped back, slowly distancing herself, easing the tension between us. As she finally let go, she gave a firm, deliberate pull that caught me off guard. I reacted instinctively, much to my own shock. "Oops, sorry about that," I managed to say, still trying to catch my breath. "No worries," she replied quickly, standing up. "That's the last part fixed. The feeder is ready now," she stated, moving away from the machinery and heading towards her house. Fumbling with my clothing, I tried to compose myself and followed Caroline. My mind raced, concerned whether anyone had seen us, especially the kids or Clarissa. Looking toward the house, I saw Clarissa busy in the kitchen, thankfully unaware of the recent events. Relieved that the children were still indoors, I walked back with Caroline. As we entered the kitchen, I noticed my sons focused on their video games, thankfully oblivious to the situation. "Clarissa, ever cheerful, joked, "You two sure took a while to get done." Panting, I tried to brush it off, but Caroline's comment about fixing a few nuts made my face drain of color. Her words were a sly nod to our recent, covert encounter. The meal continued without further innuendo, with Clarissa and Caroline dominating the conversation. I sat mostly silent, my thoughts spinning from the intense experience, barely touching my food. I pretended to be absorbed in the newspaper, acting uninterested in the chatter, while my mind was still reeling from the shock and thrill of what had happened. The memory of the intense encounter lingered, leaving a lasting impression on me. Caroline left in the mid-afternoon, leaving me in a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, exhilaration, guilt, and shame. I couldn't shake the feeling of being exploited, feeling tainted and ashamed. It seemed Caroline had manipulated me in a moment of vulnerability, where resistance felt impossible without risking harm to her. Or was I simply too shocked and overwhelmed by the situation and couldn't resist? I confess, I was physically aroused before anything happened, but was that an involuntary reaction, or had Caroline orchestrated everything? These thoughts tormented me, evoking feelings akin to those of someone who's been coerced, where consent is murky and unvoiced. The incident haunted me, stirring intense emotions and physical reactions whenever I recalled it. Yet, guilt gnawed at me for betraying my marriage vows, knowing full well that Clarissa would never accept my plea of non-consent. I was certain she would see her mother as the victim. Life trudged on. I kept to my usual work schedule, fortunate for the routine 7 to 3 shift that allowed me to share meals with my family, though the atmosphere at these gatherings had turned noticeably subdued. Clarissa probably attributed this to the weeks of intimacy we missed, assuming I was brooding. Indeed, I longed for the intimacy Clarissa and I shared, which was never overly passionate but was fulfilling, with us being close a few times a week before her health issues began. However, I was mostly stuck in limbo, unable to move past the incident with Caroline. To compound matters, upon returning home before my 3-day break, Clarissa had some surprising news. Entering our home, I stored my service weapon, a Sig Sauer .40 caliber, in the safe as usual. After securing it, I joined Clarissa in the kitchen, where the aroma of roast beef filled the air, stirring my appetite. "Hey, babe," she asked while preparing vegetables for the slow cooker. "Do you have plans for tomorrow?" No, not really," I said, sinking into one of the kitchen chairs. The day had been tough, marked by an unfortunate incident. It was rare to encounter such chaos during the day shift, and this one was particularly disheartening. The individual involved was in critical condition. I arranged for the boys to be watched tomorrow. "Your sister said she'd take them." My ears perked up, anticipating perhaps a surprise romantic plan from her. My heart dropped as she went on, "I'm going to take a trip up north with Sherry and a few friends for a weekend of shopping. It's been ages since I've had a moment to myself, and we all finally found a weekend that works," she explained. I had to admit, Clarissa deserved this break. She's the full-time, dedicated educator for our children, seldom having time away from home. So, I knew I owed her some leisure time. "Yeah, that's fine. You deserve a break, but why not leave the boys with me?" I proposed, not ready for her response. "My mom called this morning, just as I started lessons with the boys. She needs your help this weekend for some tasks at her place," she said. I nearly spat out my water. How do I navigate this? Saying no wasn't an option. If I declined to help her mother, Clarissa would demand reasons. In my line of work, I'm skilled at deceit to gather information, but with Clarissa, that's impossible. She has an uncanny ability to detect untruths, as clearly as one senses a bad odor in a closed space. Keeping quiet usually keeps suspicions at bay, but any attempt at deception is instantly recognized by her. Sure, I guess. I had hoped to work on some things here, but if she needs the help. I trailed off, looking for an escape. Clarissa gave me a knowing look, and I conceded, I'll help out your mom. Clarissa continued with dinner preparations. Thanks. She's had a tough year and could use the support, especially now that she's on her own, she said, chopping an onion. I sighed internally, realizing the predicament I was in, inadvertently set up by my own wife. Dinner ended, and we settled down for a movie with the boys before heading to bed early, gearing up for an early start the next day. Clarissa left early, entrusting me with the boys' morning routine. By 7:30, she was off, and by 9, the boys were expected at my sister Beth's, who had planned a family weekend at my parents' place. It promised to be a fun time for the boys, full of family interactions and grandparental pampering. Everyone seemed to benefit from the arrangement, except me. I arrived at Caroline's place around 10:30, having taken a leisurely route after leaving the kids off. Her home was just a 45-minute drive from mine, but I needed some extra time to sort through my thoughts. I parked near the horse corrals, anticipating that Caroline might need a hand dismantling them, and fetched my toolbox from the truck. Shortly after, Caroline emerged, striding towards the corral in her typical outfit, a straw Stetson, a blue shirt, and snug Wrangler jeans. I averted my gaze, feeling the situation might become complicated. "Wow," she exclaimed. "I thought you'd be here earlier, considering Clarissa mentioned you'd drop off the kids at 9. She seemed genuinely annoyed by my tardiness, which was unexpected. I thought she'd feel as awkward about my presence as I did. I got held up at the sheriff's office, had some paperwork to finish, I fibbed. "I heard something about that," she replied, stepping into the corral. "Anyway, let's get cracking." She brushed by me, her perfume faintly in the air, making me wonder about her choice to wear it for farm work. We spent the next 3 hours dismantling the horse corral and some smaller pens, mostly in silence except when we needed to coordinate tools. After finishing, Caroline returned from the house with 2 glasses of lemonade, a refreshing break given the heat. I noticed she seemed more relaxed, with her shirt slightly more unbuttoned. After quickly finishing my drink, Caroline offered a refill, which I declined, mentioning I had water in my truck. "All right," she responded, heading back. "Let's tackle the fence next. I'm thinking of enclosing the old corral area to expand the pasture." As she walked away, I couldn't help but notice her confident stride. My heart raced, and I blurted out, "Jesus Christ." I laughed incredulously. "What's wrong? Seriously?" I faltered. "Caroline, can we actually address the issue here? Are you just going to pretend nothing's amiss?" Caroline turned away, silent. "And what about Clarissa?" I pressed on. "How should I face this situation?" "If you're wise," Caroline retorted, "you'll stay silent. That's the best move for someone who's thinking clearly." I was baffled. She either couldn't understand or chose not to. "Can we at least discuss this?" I asked. Caroline's shoulders slumped. "Discuss what? It's done. What do you expect me to say?" I was at a loss for words, unsure of what I wanted to hear. "Maybe an apology, I guess," I muttered. Caroline scoffed. "An apology? For what, exactly?" My frustration was growing. "You crossed a line, Caroline. You exploited the situation. And for what reason? Oh, come on, Patrick. Just let it go. Most people would dream of such an encounter." She turned and walked towards the house. I hesitated, then followed her. I reached out, touching her arm to stop her, then immediately let go. "You know, Caroline, you may be right. Many might envy such an event. And sure, it's crossed my mind too. But that doesn't excuse you taking advantage of me. I deserve at least an explanation for your actions. Didn't you consider the repercussions if things had gone awry? Don't you care about the potential impact on me and my family?" Caroline moved slowly to the bench on her back patio and sat down. She placed the empty lemonade glasses on the table and sighed deeply. "All right," she conceded. "You have a point, Patrick. I owe you an explanation. It seems I did take advantage of the situation." She leaned back, her face showing resignation. "I just need to understand what happened," I began. "I don't want you or my wife to think I initiated anything." "It's okay, Patrick," she replied, her eyes brimming with tears, making me regret even bringing up the topic. Yet, the weekend stretched out before us and it seemed wrong not to address it. "It's been a terrible year," Caroline explained. "Dale left me for someone much younger, my father passed away suddenly, and now I'm watching my mother battle serious illness. I just wanted to find some happiness, something that felt good." She removed her hat, releasing her sandy blonde hair, her distress somehow accentuating her appeal, which made me mentally reprimand myself. "Being replaced by someone younger, more attractive, it's crushing," she said. Feeling it was time for some reassurance, I offered, "Well, I don't think Dale's new girlfriend holds a candle to you. They say people often choose poorly in affairs. And personally," I added with a light tone, "she's not my type at all." With watery eyes, Caroline managed a smile. "Thank you, Patrick. That means a lot. And about what happened, I'm so sorry. It could have ruined everything with Clarissa. Sitting beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. Her scent was unmistakable. Caroline, what drove you to act that way? She sighed. I suppose I needed to feel wanted, to prove I could still be desirable. It was wrong to use you to fulfill that, and I regret it. I have to be honest, I continued. That moment was unexpectedly intense. But seeing you now, I realize you were just trying to cope with your pain. Her smile thawed my lingering frustration, helping me see her not just as someone who made a mistake, but as a person grappling with her own deep-seated issues. I value that, Patrick. I just wish Dale had valued my abilities the way you do, she said. Why do you think he didn't value them? What led him to leave? I had to ask. I needed to understand her perspective. Well, she hesitated. I didn't often do that for him. He never showed enough appreciation to make it mutual. His focus was always on his own enjoyment, never on mine. I grew tired of it. Despite my desire, I didn't want to with Dale anymore because it was never fulfilling for me. Eventually, I stopped, and perhaps that's why he looked elsewhere. Patrick, she continued, last week was incredibly intimate for me. It's rare for things to be that satisfying for either of us, I'm sorry to say. Her words surprised me. Wait, what do you mean by as much as we would like? I asked, shocked. What do you know about it? Caroline took my hand gently. I know about Clarissa's struggles, Patrick. It affects both of you deeply, she explained. Clarissa has shared with me how it's impacting your marriage. Anger bubbled inside me. If she knows, why doesn't she do something about it? Clarissa's very stubborn, Caroline noted. She's against using synthetic remedies. She loves you and wants to find a solution, just not the conventional ones. I use simple remedies for everyday problems, I argued. Clarissa has a manageable condition, according to her doctor. I don't get why she won't address it. I've tried to persuade her, Caroline said, warning her of the risks to your marriage. She joked recently that she needed clones, one for household tasks, one for the kids, and one to be intimate with you so she could have time for herself. She was only joking, though. That didn't console me. My wife viewed intimacy as just another chore, akin to housework. Seeing my pain, Caroline softly kissed away a tear. The scent of her perfume overwhelmed me. I responded with a gentle kiss, which she returned more passionately. She took my right hand and gently guided it to her chest, urging me to press gently yet firmly. However, my desires were leading elsewhere. Our kisses deepened, fueling the intensity of our connection with every touch. I subtly traced my fingers along the outline of her form through her tight jeans. As our embrace lingered, Caroline stood and led me by hand into the barn, finding solitude in an empty stall. She spread a large horse blanket on the ground, creating a makeshift sanctuary. I carefully unbuttoned her blue shirt, revealing the snug fit of her jeans that seemed to melt to her shape. In that moment, Caroline exuded an allure that captivated me entirely. I proceeded to loosen her belt, feeling the warmth emanating from her as I traced my hand along her silhouette. In turn, Caroline removed my shirt, unfastening the top button of my jeans with a smooth motion. The moment was electric, filled with mutual desire. Gently, I unclasped Caroline's bra, revealing the natural beauty of her form. As I knelt down, easing her jeans to her ankles, the air filled with the subtle scent of anticipation. Settling on the blanket, our exchange of affection continued, now in more intimate apparel. I tenderly kissed along her collarbone, prompting a soft sigh from Caroline as I moved with deliberate care. The night unfolded with a shared longing, our connection deepening as we navigated our desires. Caroline whispered her need for a slow and deep connection, to which I was attuned, but I yearned to explore the warmth of our intimacy even further, honoring each moment of our encounter. I gently nudged the edge of her underwear, pulling it aside slightly, to discover her flushed and glistening. I began with a tender, prolonged caress from the base upwards, slowly drawing in the delicate folds with my lips. Oh, my God, that feels so good, Patrick, she exclaimed in delight. I enveloped her in my embrace, exploring softly with my tongue. Her body's reaction was new and intense, signaling a deep sensation she hadn't felt before. I sensed her muscles tense, signaling she was nearing a peak of excitement. Soon, her response overwhelmed my senses, and I cherished the moment. The intense scent of her exertion under the sun kindled a deep craving within me. I continued to please her, each time eliciting waves of bliss. Eventually, she urged me upwards, discarding the last barriers between us. I lifted her legs gently, finding a rhythm together slowly as her body responded warmly. I initially worried about our position, but her adaptability and response reassured me. We moved together, finding a pace that allowed her pleasure to build gradually and intensely. She guided our rhythm, leading to several peaks of pleasure. After a while, she shifted, taking the lead in our dance, and found yet another crest of exhilaration. We had been lost in each other for quite some time, driven by a mutual desire to bring joy. Our connection deepened, moving in harmony, as I felt a familiar tension signaling my own approaching climax. Inside or outside? I gasped, nearing the edge, and close. Inside. Stay with me, Patrick, she urged. Embracing the moment, we reached the height of our shared experience, feeling a profound connection and fulfillment. Oh, wow, Caroline, "This is incredible," I exclaimed as I was overwhelmed by a surge of euphoria. Caroline called out my name repeatedly as she too was swept up in the moment. I fell beside her, utterly exhausted, feeling like I'd run a marathon. We both lay there, soaked in sweat, catching our breath. Eventually, I shifted to the side, and we shared another intense, affectionate kiss. It was astonishing to think I had just experienced such intense intimacy with the mother of my partner. There was an unreal quality to it all as I observed the aftermath of our encounter. Caroline, still panting, looked at me with a mischievous glint in her eye and teased, ready for round 2. She playfully touched my arm, reigniting my vigor. "You might want to free up your afternoon, and perhaps tomorrow as well." The rest of the day saw us moving to a more comfortable setting indoors, closer to the convenience of the shower. We indulged in each other's company multiple times until late, only stopping because I had to collect my boys and return home before Clarissa finished her shopping. The fence repair was postponed, but I found myself eagerly anticipating the next opportunity to work on it. The days leading up to that weekend had been ordinary, but since then, it was all I could think about. Caroline and I met up again a few times after that initial encounter, once the following weekend and then again a week later. Eventually, Caroline finalized her divorce and started seeing someone new, a man introduced to her by a friend. She moved in with him, which meant she was now hours away. Our meetings became less frequent, though she and Clarissa continued to have long conversations over the phone. As for Clarissa and me, we're getting by. She's been trying to dedicate more time to our relationship, which has led to us being intimate more regularly. However, she remains hesitant about medical solutions to her health concerns, preferring natural remedies, which unfortunately don't seem to make much difference. She's making an effort, and I acknowledge that. However, the intimacy we share now doesn't spark the same intensity as before, and it falls short of the connection I experienced with Caroline. I hold on to the hope of reigniting that flame, but thoughts of Caroline frequently cross my mind. Whenever we see each other, she sometimes catches my eye, offering a quick wink and a knowing smile. Deep down, there's a part of me that quietly wishes our paths will cross again in a meaningful way. My comment: she is being selfish, not providing her husband with the kind of intimacy that is so critical to a successful marriage and which is certainly one of the main reasons he got married to her. I would never deprive my wife of any comfort,